So here's the completed shelter. It's a bush lean-to with a root buttress front face to deflect the heat back. Here it is here. Root buttress. This should, in theory, absorb the heat and reflect it back and reflect the fire or the heat from the fire towards the shelter. And here's the shelter. So as you can see, I got a couple of bush bundles backed up with a bunch of birch bark so I can start fires the first thing in the morning or in the middle of the night when I sleep too long. We got a bush lean-to here. I've used next to no man-made materials except for this little bit of string to hold up the ridgepole. I could have gotten away without using any string. As you can see, my kit's stowed away nicely here. Snowshoes, water bottle, my shotgun to protect myself and the dogs against predators. And also the fire's going off to the side because I was using this area here as my workspace for cutting spruce boughs. And as you can see, I even utilized all the tops by building this third wall to block the wind a bit, because I know that the predominant winds here come out of the northwest, which should essentially be in this direction. So I've got it covered off for the most part. Although today the winds are out of the southwest, so I may be hurting a bit when it comes to smoke. But I'll get more heat if I'm sitting in on my sitting log. As you can see, the sitting logs are fairly thick and high. It allows me to sit nicely in my shelter without bending or stooping too much. Also, I've kept all the green poles to put down as a base for my fire in here so that it doesn't sink down too fast. I may have to replace those green ones, but I will also have to replace the boughs or fluff up the boughs of my bough bed every time I lay on it or sleep on it. I'm also going to have to add another 6 inches probably of boughs to the outside of my shelter to make sure it is actually rainproof, snowproof. Here I formed a bit of an assembly line. As you can see, I've got my spruce trees already lined up. I had this all lined up with spruce trees all the way back. I had a nice trail back there. I kept using the same trail, extending the trail to new spruce trees or fir trees, whatever you want to call them. A bit of both, actually. And I've got a little bit of firewood stored up there. I've got a decent bundle of firewood here. I don't think that's enough really to last me more than a couple of days maximum. Although it is only minus 4 or 5 today, maybe minus 6. It still takes quite a bit of firewood to stay warm and dry out your equipment, especially in these temperatures, because you get pretty warm and wet. The snow's pretty wet right now, so I would need to dry myself and my equipment out on a continual basis. The water's not quite ready for the Labrador tea, but I've got it ready for my second steep. Here, I'll give you another view of the shelter from the outside. Bush lean-to. I built it all with a hand saw only. I tried using my little hatchet. Wasn't impressed. Wasn't heavy enough. Was taking too long. Was absorbing or using up too much energy. So here we go. Bush lean-to with the outer wall. As you can see, it's pretty camouflaged with the snow and the greenery. It looks like everything else. So not that good of a shelter to be seen with if you're trying to signal for help. But a good shelter to do if you don't have any tarps or anything. I'll give you another view from the other side here. There you go, as you can see. Eventually I could turn this into a cabin if I was here long enough. I would have a little bit of overhead cover. I would have 4 walls on it. I would leave a slot in the center so I could feed wood into the fire. I would use green poles at the top, across, on both sides, or this way actually. I'd have to run one on each side, then run them this way, so that I could have the slot up the center for the fire and the smoke to escape, kind of like a chimney. So as you can see, pretty nice, cozy. Good for 2 people, I guess. The one sleeping to the back, obviously, on cold nights is going to get colder because they're not up against the fire. But if you had the fire the full length of the shelter, you could switch off or use body heat to stay warm.